Welcome back, guys, to TME, and I want to make another video related to the previous video that I made and talk about this topic, this subject some more. Now, at the time of making this video that you're watching, I'll say that the previous one, entitled "So I Got Inspired," I made last night, and right after making that video last night and talking to you guys for an hour about meditation and also where my mind has been for as long as I can remember, and being stuck in these cycles of survival mode, which I finally understand after listening to this doctor's books and the way that he's describing how this stuff happens. I just feel like I finally made some kind of a breakthrough. So after I let you guys go at the end of the previous video, I turned the camera off, and because I am in this truck, I will say that that's one of the good things about being isolated in a truck, is that, well, I've never really had any issues as far as my environment goes. I've never really had any issues as far as having a prayer life, other than, you know, the mental disorders that I was talking about being in for so long. Yeah, that will, and it absolutely did inhibit my ability to connect with God, for sure, but I never understood why. It's because I couldn't get out of that brain state, that high beta brain state. So guys, I literally can say this to you honestly. At this point, it's your subjective decision whether or not you choose to believe what I'm about to tell you about this stuff. But other than sleeping, I have to say that I've been stuck in the beta brain state during my consciousness for as long as I can remember. I'm talking about decades, and not really being aware of it or even understanding what's going on, just referring to it as consciousness, but not realizing how complex consciousness actually is. And if you're not familiar with these terms and you don't know anything about meditation or brain states, if you don't know anything about brain science or anything like that, then that's understandable. But you do know, and you can relate to perspective being your own perspective. And when I'm talking about these things and describing them, I'm just basically describing aspects of perception and what I've experienced. So basically, yes, I have accessed other states in my brain, and in my previous video I described to you the 5 known brain waves that we can experience. So that's why when I refer to beta, that's what I mean, like the high beta, like the basically the waves that my brain is undergoing right now. I'm operating a 70-foot vehicle going 65 miles an hour down the interstate. So I'm officially in beta right now. I'm relying on my senses in this state of mind in order to process all the information around me as I do this. Well, what I'm saying is that other than just being stuck in this one state of mind, I have experienced Delta in an unconscious way for decades on end, and then that would just be sleep, you know, the sleep cycle in your body. When your body goes to sleep, your mind goes to sleep. Your mind becomes unconscious, even though it's technically in those delta waves. And the thing that distinguishes the different brain waves, I failed to mention this in my previous video, is the hertz, or the rate, the cycles per second that this electrical impulse is going through your brain. So your brain basically functions very similar to a computer. You're having these impulses, these cycles that occur however many times per second. Well, the higher forms of consciousness, like beta, the more cycles per second that electrical impulse is going through your brain. And then as you fall asleep and you go into delta, which is the lowest form, that cycle, that per second rate, it slows down exponentially. And I think the lowest recorded impulse is actually about 0.5 cycles per second, as far as I know. I have to do more study on this myself to really learn more about it, to talk more about it. I don't feel like I'm really that qualified to talk about brain waves, other than to just describe to you what it feels like. So getting back to my original point, I want to say that after I let you guys go last night, I went directly to my bunk back there and I set myself up to do a repeating exercise that I've been doing for the past 3 days. And I kind of described to you a little bit in the previous video of what my interpretation had been up to that point. So I described to you an experience that I had driving in Atlanta after a meditation session that I had that morning. And I described to you the difference that it made and how I was thinking differently about everything, and I wasn't experiencing the same negativity. I was basically outside of that survival mode, and I could sense things in a spiritual way because I could really sense the energy around me and the things that were happening around me in a greater way than what my senses could interpret. I felt it in a much deeper way than I sensed it with my vision, like everything that was going on around me. All of the activity, it's all energy, right? Well, I'm happy to tell you guys that after a long process of just getting my brain to settle down and relax and let go of my thoughts, let go of my memories, let go of my emotions, I actually breached Theta last night before I went to bed. It took probably about 2 hours where I literally just sat there. I sat there with my eyes closed. I sat up, my spine was straight, my neck was straight. And there's one exercise that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. It's like the initiate meditation exercise. So it goes a lot deeper than this, but this is how most people initiate themselves into the process of meditation. But you sit there, you need to sit up straight, you need to have your neck straight, because ultimately what's happening is you're getting so relaxed that your body's actually starting to fall asleep while your mind stays aware. But you're basically just hanging on to that single, or you're holding on to the singularity of just having awareness. In order to have that singularity of awareness, you have to let go of your senses, which are connected with your body. So I did that. I sat, I did not move a muscle for well over an hour. I just kept repeating a slow rhythm of breathing in and out. I focused on my body to start out with. I focused on my body. And this is really important because he says that as you do this, all the energy going around your body, you know, you have like an energy field going around your body that your body's putting off. It's like an electromagnetic field. As you start to relax and you focus on each part of your body, I'm talking about each individual specific part, from the top of your head to the bottom, you know, the soles of your feet, your toes, you know, your entire anatomy. You're focusing on each part of it one by one, right? After you do that, you go back up to the top of your head and you start focusing on the space surrounding your body from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. After that, you start to focus on whatever space you're occupying, which in my case, it would be this truck. The inside of this truck is about 8 feet wide by 10 feet deep, including the seating area up here and the sleeper in the back. And I'm so familiar with being in this space that I can sense it without looking at it, because I spend so much time in here. So all that stuff was really easy for me to do. Okay, the last thing he says you need to do is imagine this space that you're occupying being filled up with something like water, some kind of liquid, something like that. But if that seems uncomfortable to you, then instead imagine it just being filled up, or imagine the space itself filling your mind, so that you're being aware of the entire space that you're occupying all together and seeing it as one. Once that happens, you're actually able to take all of this gathered information from your brain that you've been focusing on. And guys, it's important to note that you shouldn't try to do this in a really short amount of time. Really take your time. Really sit there and really love yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin while you're doing this. Don't be anxious. Just think about your intention. Just think about what you want to accomplish. And you should also, before you even start the meditation session, you should have it set in your mind that you're not going to get up, you're not going to move until something inside of you shifts, until there's some kind of change inside of you. All those things really do help. So after you've collected all this information and it's in your mind, your conscious thought at that point, you're then able to see it all as one. And because you're seeing it all as one, you can actually erase it. And as you erase it and you stop thinking about it, you turn your mind off, you turn your conscious thought off, you actually begin to focus on nothing, which is not easy to describe or explain, but that's literally what you're doing. And it's like I said in my previous video, you are literally forgetting your surroundings. You're forgetting about time, and you're forgetting about your body. You're forgetting about yourself. And all those things that I just told you to do will help you do this. It's proven that it'll help you do this. After your mind goes blank, you're just focusing on that singular awareness. So you're finally sensing without your senses. It can be described as a sixth sense, really. It's your awareness of your insides, like your inner being. That's how you move from the beta to the alpha. Now, once you're in the alpha, you are relaxed. Your thoughts have slowed down a lot. You're calm, you're relaxed, you're just experiencing your own awareness, and you've got your eyes closed. It's important that you keep your eyes closed while you're doing this, because according to him, I think he said like maybe 75% or more of your sense is taken in from your vision. So you have to keep your eyes shut. Another thing that really helped me is, like, I've got like these screens up in front of the truck. I've got things plugged in, I've got batteries charging, I've got this, I've got that. All that stuff puts off light. So if you can, you should try to cover up most of that external light. Another thing that might distract you is sound. So you want to try to be in as quiet of a space as you can possibly be in that's free of distractions. All of these things are ultimately going to help you accomplish this. Now, I have to like reword what I said before, because I've been in alpha. I have been in alpha and not realized it, but not really understanding the difference between beta and alpha. I have experienced alpha brainwaves, and that's as far as I've gotten. You know, that's why I do like being out of this truck. That's why I do like going home. That's why I do like doing things like I did when I did the Silent Hill 2 project, the game that I played and I made videos about. All that stuff I would say would be connected to creativity in a limited way, and it actually made me feel good to make that series, the Silent Hill 2 project. Well, I've never been satisfied with being in that state, because I've always known, subconsciously, I've always known that there's more available. There always has been. How do I know that? Because I remember experiencing things as a child, and everything that I'm talking about, experiencing how matter is really just energy condensed and slowed down. It's a slow vibration of energy. I experienced all that stuff when I was a kid. In fact, I would have to say that as a child, being in these lower states of mind with the lower brainwave, the lower frequency brainwaves, I have memories of experiencing these things. And it's very familiar to me, but it's something that I felt like I lost a long time ago. So going back to what I initially started talking about and what I experienced, after I did all these exercises in my mind, these mental preparations, I found myself in a relaxed but focused state inside of my mind, finally feeling something besides my external senses. So I finally got into a state where my brain had started to turn off external sensory. I forgot about sight, I forgot about hearing. And keep in mind, guys, it wasn't perfectly silent, it wasn't perfectly dark. But despite the fact that I was, you know, parked at a rest area around other trucks that were idling and making noise in the outside environment, it was still silent enough for me to detach myself from my external surroundings. Okay, so after doing that, I became very aware of the inside of my mind. I started to sense the space inside of me, but still a space that was occupying the higher parts of my consciousness. It's really hard to explain this stuff. But from that point, I noticed that I was able to focus easier. And at that point, I noticed that it was easier for me to acknowledge God, you know, the Holy Spirit, the life source that I've always felt. I then started to become extremely aware of a space beneath me that I could move into. I could sink slowly sink down into it. And in my head, I had a slight monologue, you could call it a prayer, because I knew that God was with me when I was doing this. Because keep in mind, guys, it's not exactly comfortable doing this, because when you do this, you're invoking the unknown, because you're not familiar with it, you're not comfortable with it, and you don't know what's going to happen. So you will have this conscious thought while you're doing these things of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Is this for real? Is something really about to happen? Well, what's about to happen? What's going to happen if I do this? Am I going to be able to come back if I keep moving in this direction? And guys, the really important thing is, once you start to realize that this stuff is real and it's possible and you're actually able to do it, you might start to have doubt and you might start to have fear, because it is the unknown that you're accessing. And that has driven a lot of people away from actually doing what I'm just describing doing in meditation, because they honestly don't know. They're scared to get a good look at what's on the inside of them. They're afraid of it. It's unknown to them. So it's really important that you recognize and react to the energy field once you start to realize that it's there. That energy field is your life force. It's the source that your life comes from. It's connected to the Creator. So it's really important that if you move on from this state, that you trust the divine presence that's with you as you do this, because you're not alone. Even when you sink into the deeper parts of yourself that have been unconscious for such a long time, and you face the unknown, you're still not doing it alone. So it's really important to recognize that. So at that point, being in the alpha state of mind, I then began to focus on that space beneath me. And as I did that, one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced in my life that I can recall actually happened. I sank deeper within myself. And it's hard to describe what this feels like in words, but it's literally like your conscious mind is sinking inside of the space that makes up your being. Not just your body, but like what's inside of your body, the life source that's inside of your body. Okay, at that point, I still held on to that awareness, but at that point, I was extremely relaxed. Extremely relaxed. I felt like in order to like move my body, I would have to exert some serious force just to be able to move. But I didn't want to move, because I realized that something just happened. Something really big just happened to me. And as soon as I slipped into this lower state of consciousness, everything changed. Everything shifted. And guys, I found from that state that I could begin to sense. Once again, I could begin to sense. As I realized, okay, I'm inside of myself right now. I became very detached from the outside. As I mentioned before, there was noise going on around me outside of my truck. That noise was it was still noticeable, but because I wasn't focused on it, I could barely hear. It was almost like I was going deaf to the external world. because really I was. Those senses that we use to perceive the external world, I believe that I was still using those senses, but I was using a different part of them that I'm not used to using. So instead of sensing what was on the outside of me and my external surroundings, I was hearing things inside of me. I was visualizing things inside of me. The initial feeling that I got was, oh my God, this is real. The next thought that came to me was, this is so familiar. This is so familiar. I have felt this before, but I have not felt this since I was a child. I've been longing for this feeling for decades. I've been wondering where this other side of myself has been for decades. I have been suffering. My soul has been hurting for so long because I felt so detached from this side of myself. But I knew deep down that this side of myself is real. It actually exists. And guys, that's one thing that I will say happens to you whenever you do smoke weed. You put THC in your body. That substance is ultimately, it's activating these parts of your brain, but it's doing it in a different kind of way. People that become dependent on these kinds of substances, they become addicted to these substances because they experience these different parts of their brain, and they enjoy it. They enjoy like the euphoria from it. They enjoy because they feel like they're getting access to a part of themselves that they don't have access to when they're sober. So then they get addicted to the substance. Well, after so long, that substance is going to change the chemical makeup and structure of your brain. And then you'll get dependent on it, and then you'll start to need more and more and more of it just to feel those feelings. And the longer you do it, the more you're actually abusing the structure of your brain, and you're putting it in an unbalanced state. So then it starts to affect other parts of you. Starts to affect your central nervous system. It starts to affect all the autonomous processes in your body. And what those people that become addicts don't realize is that you already have all of this stuff in you internally. All this stuff is already here, and you already have access to it, and you don't need any kind of outside substance or anything else to experience it. It's all already inside of you. It's just a matter of gaining access to it. So I remember feeling similar to this whenever I did use THC. But it was a lot different when I did it, and I felt these feelings. I accessed this different state of mind from these different brain waves through meditation. It was a lot different. It felt sacred. It felt real. It felt authorized by God. It felt inviting, and I didn't feel like I was separating myself from God in order to experience it. I felt more connected with God. It almost felt like the voice of God was already down there calling me deeper into myself. And so what I want to tell you guys in different words, much shorter words at this point, is that I honestly believe that last night when I was meditating, I gained access to the Theta state of mind with the Theta brainwaves. And I noticed the electrical impulses in my brain and how they slowed down. Now, the next thing I'll say about it is I've always been an artist. a musician, some form of both of those things. I enjoy creative writing, I enjoy drawing, I enjoy painting, I enjoy all kinds of creativity. I enjoy playing instruments, I enjoy music, I enjoy sound. But being stuck in the beta and the alpha brainwaves for decades on end, I've always looked at creativity. And guys, don't get me wrong, I have practiced what you could consider some form of talent in certain ways. Like I said in a previous video, I've been playing guitar since I was 15 years old, but I just haven't grown in my capability to do it or get really good at it. And I haven't practiced. I haven't been motivated to practice. I've also got into, you know, during certain periods of time, I've gotten into the habit of drawing. I've gotten into the habit of painting. I've actually made oil paintings. Recently, I've gotten more into the habit of creative writing. I love these things about myself. They are things that I have used in the past to kind of counteract the cycle that I was describing being stuck in for so long in the previous video. But I've always had this frustration that has been triggered by the fact that I'm only able to access creativity in a shallow kind of way. I've always felt a wall blocking me from the deeper parts of my brain where that creativity comes from. Well, I noticed that in the Theta state of mind, everything pertaining to creativity, it becomes more tangible. It becomes more conceivable. Therefore, it becomes more solid inside of your mind. And I noticed that anything I envisioned in the Theta brainwaves, I could visualize in my head with no distractions. Anything I wanted to see, I could have conceptualized in my mind. That's another thing that I found I was able to do by using THC, but it was very limited and it was very frustrating trying to hold on to it because of all the side effects that come with using marijuana. I didn't have any of that, okay? That sense of familiarity that I got also, it rooted me. I feel like it rooted my soul. It was a new life experience. It was a new creative experience. And a lot of the stuff that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about in his books is that whenever you reach these lower forms of consciousness, these are the areas of your brain where you are hyper focused on internal aspects. And what he referred to them as is like long-term construction projects in your mind. And one of the most profound things that this man said, and I think he actually said it in both of his books that I listened to, but he says that by meditating, you're actually inversing and you're redefining what it means to be a human being, because no longer are you being affected by your external surroundings and internalizing all of that negativity that comes from the survival mode that I described in my previous video. You're inversing that energy. You're reclaiming that energy. And by doing that, you're actually able to do the opposite. You're able to take things from the inside of yourself and externalize them into reality. And essentially, by doing that, the better you get at doing that, the more you can bring things into existence. And if you're a Christian, then that should be very profound to you, because you realize that God is a creator, and he made us to be creative. And that's what the realm of the spirit is. It's creativity. And so because of the way that he worded and described this theta state of mind, this is where he says you can actually begin to reprogram the way that you think. It actually goes even deeper than that, though. It does. And what he means by long-term construction projects, I think that's actually what he means. Because this is the state of mind that you can go into to reprogram the way that you think and actually have access to the life source without distractions, without interruptions. And there's a lot of stuff in the Bible, actually, believe it or not, that resonates with everything that I'm describing right now. It's actually pretty incredible. So with it being a long-term construction project, it's actually something that you would return to. And that's why all of this is it's really life-changing, because you're actually ultimately learning how to exist in deeper forms of consciousness. And when you're on the inside of yourself like that and you're aware, you're actually able to manipulate and change different aspects of yourself, because you finally have access to deeper parts. Essentially, it's like the garden of your soul, where seeds can be planted and things can grow. So if you want to receive better things, if you feel like the state of life that you're in is not satisfying, and you feel like you're short-handed, like maybe you took a wrong path, you made wrong decisions, or you're just not happy with the way that your life is going, and you want to make changes. You might want to change your career. You might want to change relationships. You might want to do anything. You might want to learn how to be a more creative person. You might want to write a book. Anything like that. You go to this state of mind. You access it and change certain things internally to reflect in the outside world. Guys, I can't even hardly tell you without holding back tears that, like, I honestly, after experiencing what I experienced last night, guys, I have to tell you that I'm happier. In this moment, I am happier than I have been in decades. I feel more meaning, even in what I'm doing right now. As meaningless as it felt to me before, it has so much more meaning to me now. I feel like I found the other half of myself. And I didn't even understand what was, even though all this felt so familiar to me, whenever I was a kid and I accessed these other parts of myself, I didn't understand what that stuff was for back then. It was just all natural to me. I just did it automatically. I didn't know I was gonna lose it. Well, it wasn't just a matter of losing it as I grew up. I didn't only lose it, I forgot about it. I forgot that it even existed. But that feeling that I got whenever I was able to go back to that place with God, I can't describe to you guys how amazing, how fulfilling, how satisfying that was. Ultimately, what it's making me want to do is this exact same thing. Just do it more and more and more and more and more and more and more, and just keep doing it and keep learning and keep growing and keep interfacing with life. Because I know that by doing this, ultimately, I'm going to fall in love with life all over again, even in the external. And this is how we make life changes. But we don't realize this. We think that we have to do everything on the outside, like in a conscious way, in the beta brain waves, and I would say even in the alpha brain waves. Alpha brain waves are important and beta brain waves are important, but the really essential stuff that really makes a difference is deeper than that. You were designed to have this kind of access internally. We all were designed to have this. This is part of our evolution. So I stayed in that theta brainwave state for a considerable period of time. I don't know how long I was in it, but I didn't have any kind of feeling or, you know, rush to want to leave or anything like that. I felt peace, I felt stillness, I felt wholeness in a whole new kind of way. And it was very, very, very real. It was way more tangible than even what I'm experiencing right now on the outside. And I've always felt that all this stuff was real for the longest time. But guys, like I said, I forgot about it. But I'm remembering now. And it's changing the person that I am. But that's not even all of it. That's not even all I need to say. Because like I described in my previous video, there is a brain state that's even lower than theta. And I tried, guys. I tried. It's the delta. It's the delta brainwaves. And like I described in the previous video, it's the brainwaves that newborn babies, infants, and toddlers spend most of their time in. Actually, when they become toddlers, that's when they start to shift over into the theta brainwaves. Now, I tried to do the same thing that I did. Remember when I described shifting from alpha to theta, I kind of slipped down within myself. I kind of slipped down within myself, and I tried to do it again. I tried for a very long time to do it again, but eventually I just told myself, you know what, this is good enough. This is enough for right now. Like, I have so much to reflect on, not overanalyze on, but reflect on. I have so much to look forward to. This is just the beginning of my journey. I'm going to come back to this place, and I'm going to get deeper than this. Another profound thing that I want to say to Christians, if there even are any Christians that are still listening to me, because a lot of Christians are afraid of this kind of stuff. They call it New Age spiritualism, and it's satanic at its core. It's really satanic. That's bullshit, guys. That's all bullshit. It's not. It's actually us surrendering to God and us operating in a way, operating according to the way that God designed us to operate. Religion for centuries has focused on the external world and forgotten about the internal connection with God. And things like religion and other aspects that are actually negative, that cause wars and stuff like that in the external world, those are all connected to the previous parts of evolution that humans have within themselves. It's the carnal side of humanity. But this new side to us is all spiritual. And it's real. I'm just here to tell you that it's a real thing. It's not even really new. It's been around. I mean, there have been ethnicities, creeds, tribes, all these different types of humans that have been practicing this stuff for centuries, for thousands of years. And I'm not saying that there's not a dark form to it with dark intentions. I'm not saying that. Obviously there is. There's gotta be. But I'm not referring to that stuff. I'm referring to the way that God intended it to be used. And so guys, last thing I'll say about it is that I attempted to slip further down into myself, into that delta. Because remember what I said in the last video, the doorway to your subconscious mind, and essentially the doorway to the infinite, is in that delta brain state. It's where your brain waves slow down the most. And therefore, that's when you would have access to everything else. Which would tell me that whatever you experience in that state of mind, which is actually the same state as dreaming, lucid, deep dreaming, deep sleep, would have an even greater effect on you as a person ultimately if you could reach that point. That's what I believe. You're accessing the deepest part of your being in that state. And it's also the part of you that has been around the longest since you, technically that's what the part that you were born with. And like I said before, that's the brain waves that babies are in. So guys, ultimately that's the part that I'm trying to gain access to. And as I continue to do this, I'll continue to share my experiences with you, but I just wanted to share this initial experience with you because it was so powerful, so profound, and it had such a big impact on me. It really, really did. It was incredible. It was incredible. It was like a turning point in my life. Like I will not forget about what I experienced last night. It was so real. And the fact that I experienced it all in the presence of God, you know, feeling connected to God the whole time, feeling the love of God the whole time, inviting me in, it was so awesome. But your takeaway from all that I've just shared with you is subjective to your point of view, your perspective, and what you choose to believe. But it's so profound to me and so impactful to me that I'm choosing to share it with you. Even if you see it as pseudoscience, even if you see it as nonsense, I don't care. I really honestly don't care what anybody thinks. Because what I experience is more real to me than anything external is. But thanks guys, thanks for listening to me. I invite you back next time to join me in these deep kind of conversations, because this is what I really enjoy about the content that I make. It's extremely enjoyable to talk about this stuff, and it's very fulfilling to talk about it and share it with people who are willing to hear it. So if you want, leave comments and come back next time. All right, see you guys later.